Tonight episode 53 of Jabber Jawn. Hope all you boys and girls have been asking your mother and father to buy you Jabber Jawn Frosted Flakes cereal when they make their weekly visit to the community supermarket. If you have, and you have collected the Jabber Jawn code book and decoder ring, tune in tonight to see if you can identify all the clues and guess the secret password. The first team member to guess the password will win a prize. For all you others not so fortunate, remember Jabber Jawn Frosted Flakes are an important part of a well-balanced diet. No one likes being bullied on the beach, so eat your Jabber Jawn Frosted Flakes and work out in your bedroom with dumbbells and a medicine ball. Next time someone at the beach tries to kick sand in your face, you can bop them on the nose and tell them to go home and cry to mommy. We also ask that you remember and respect the Jabber Jawn pledge to always treat others, who are not kicking sand in your face, as you would like to be treated by others. We here at Jabber Jawn live by that motto and live our daily lives trying to remember that motto when times get stressful. Do we want to resort to hurtful words or phrases? We as a nation, we have put an individual on the moon. Our mission as Jabber Jawn Club members is to put Jabber Jawn on the map. Together we can make the world a better place for every person we have contact with, and hopefully spread that through all the nations and provinces in the world. Repeat after me our Jabber Jawn pledge. I, your name here, do hereby promise to do my best and to never shirk my responsibilities or my commitments. My word is my promise, and my promise is to love and respect those around me as best as I can. Enjoy the show tonight and remind your family that a house is never too small to have more than one box of Jabber Jawn Frosted Flakes.
Three little frogs sitting on a log, one of them fell in. One frog said to the other frog, well, you better go get her. Two little frogs sitting on a log, one of them fell in. Last little frog, he sat and thought, good thing they can swim. Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn. Three little frogs sitting on a log, one burst into a grin. One frog said to the other frog, wonder what's got into him. Two little frogs sitting on a log, one laughed until he is red. Last little frog, he sat and thought, must have been something I said. Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn.
Oh my goodness, we are live, folks. Welcome to the show. I'm Nathan Moore. This is Kyle Hogg. This is Steve Moore. We are Jabber Jawn at your service. Welcome to the show. We have Lex back here producing. He's going to try to keep an eye on the chat for wherever you're watching, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch, wherever you are. Your chats will be funneled to our Discord server. You should check out our Discord server, Nathan's Land on Discord. I think that's all the official information. Big show this Saturday. I'll be playing at Queen City Music Studios, downtown Stanton at 6 o'clock with three other great regional songwriters, and looking forward to that. Any special announcements you have?
I'll be on the radio Friday.
Oh, yeah, you are. What's that, 5 to 6:30?
5 to 6:30, WQSV.org. Steve the Painter has allowed me and a friend to come in and play some tunes.
So you bring your own records from home?
Has to be on vinyl, yep. He allowed us to bring in 90 minutes of music in.
Have you already picked the music you're going to play? Or?
I was supposed to do the show 2 years ago, and something happened, so they've been sitting there waiting for
Oh, you've never done it before?
No.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah, very exciting.
Radio personality.
I hope you don't make a fool of yourself.
All right.
That's the reason I'm not talking. I have a friend that's going to do all the talking.
Who's doing all the talking?
Kim Cardarelli.
Oh, cool. How about you, Dad? Any special announcements?
I'm getting my stomach drained in the morning.
Oh, that's exciting.
There's going to be about more people probably be there than be your show.
I would imagine so.
Well, not because they won't come to your show, but because your show doesn't hold that many. They're going to do me in the auditorium.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a big. My body always draws a crowd.
It's a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
Are they really doing it in the operating auditorium?
Yeah, just for the cameras and everything.
What is it, like
To
Frankenstein?
document it.
Yeah,
I didn't know they still did that.
well, they don't do it all for everybody, but they do it on special. I'm just kidding.
I was thinking, I was like,
All
I've
right,
never even seen
time
that
out.
on Frankenstein or something. Jack the
out.
Ripper, ah!
You do see that on the hospital shows and stuff where there's the people sitting up behind the plate glass,
yeah.
like me
Oh,
watching
yeah.
racquetball back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And they're all up there, just students.
Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
image I had.
Oh, gosh,
And I had
yeah.
me on the table.
Yeah.
I read some famous author was talking about when they were a kid they wanted to be a doctor, and they were like in high school and had great grades, and some college or some hospital were like, man, you're like a star, pupil. So they invited him in just to sit up in the one of the things you're talking about. He sat there like, no, it's isn't for me. He's like, he just said, cutting to somebody he knew.
Yeah, well, I think that's
God,
true
yeah.
a lot of doctors. I mean, I think that's for a surgeon. You either have it or you don't.
Right.
You either enjoy it because you're going to be doing it a lot, and or you just don't want to go there.
There's probably a lot of kids that dreamed of being a doctor one day, but then they got close enough to the reality of it and realized,
Yeah, I
like,
would bet. Yeah,
no, I can't do that.
So they become psychiatrists.
I mean, every girl I knew not every girl, but half the girls I knew in high school wanted to be vets. Then they would go to like Blue Ridge, take some vets. They're like, oh no, you gotta do mean things to animals.
You got to do all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff.
petting them's one thing. Cutting their balls off is a totally different experience. Yeah.
Well, my ex-wife, her father was like a country vet. He had his vet practice at his house, and people would just show up and have no appointment or anything. We need to neuter and spade, and her father would hold the nuts and let the kids cut the nuts.
Oh gosh.
Jeez.
Now that's just terrible. See, that's where we need a censor.
Right.
I think we need a pause on that. And let Lex
nice.
step in and erase that and pull back.
Do you have a bleep sound over there for when we...
No, and it would be really great to have like some kind of cut screen that would be like technical difficulties, and then
Yeah.
put on like some nice
Yeah,
little
I got all
sunny
that.
music.
I got all that from back
How about
in
that?
the day.
How about that little crank thing beneath you?
Yeah, anything like that, but we're working on that.
Hey, Ben, good to see you.
We're still in the beginnings of season 3.
Yep,
This thing
yep.
is going to grow like a flower the whole time.
Where is that crank thing?
Oh, it's just a music box.
You like that?
Isn't that nice? It's very soothing.
I want one of those for my car. Somebody cuts me off, like I can soothe myself. But they won't know how mad I am at them. You moron! Can't you drive? Ding ding.
You know,
It's very soothing.
one of my many inventions in my book of ideas. I got some good inventions that we could all get rich on someday if we ever had the initiative. But is a friendly car horn. So you have two horns.
wow.
One is an urgent one, and one is like a nice one.
It's like when you see somebody walking on the street that you know.
Like, yeah, for friends, or if you gently want to let someone know that the light has changed,
Right.
as opposed to.
Hey, buddy.
But you have two horns, a nice
That's a
one
great
and
idea.
an urgent one.
I like that.
That
Little
shouldn't
option.
be too hard.
It shouldn't be too hard.
I was walking to the library last week and somebody honked the horn. I was walking and it's like, what did I do wrong? And I thought it might have been someone that knew me, but it's not like they were like, get out of the road! Like, I'm not in the road, What am I?
So some of the old horns, you could finesse them. You could give it a tap.
Oh, just that quick, wake up!
You don't hear car horns that much. I don't know.
I just saw a video recently of a person that put a car horn on their bike
Oh, goodness.
And they used it as they went around town. If somebody was like in the bike lane or whatever, just people getting ready to cross and didn't see the bike coming, it was like, gone, gone. I mean, people just jumping like, because you don't expect that kind of
Right.
sound coming from a
So
bike.
they had to have a big speaker mounted on their bike or something.
No,
huh?
because really the horn is not that big in a car. The actual apparatus itself it's not a big giant speaker or anything. But he affixed it to his bike and had it electronically with a switch, and boom, he was getting people left and right with that thing.
The problem is if it's Bluetooth, it's a second after you hit it.
Right. It's too late. It's too late. Oh, whoops, sorry. We haven't got this technology worked out yet. I ran over you. That happened. So I guess you all probably noticed my amazing new tennis shoes.
Oh my God.
That makes me super fast. And I even shelled out the extra bucks to have my initial monogrammed on the side of it.
Are you serious?
Look at that.
Man, you're like NBA quality now.
Oh no. Yeah, baby.
Wow.
Hold it there for as long as you can.
Oh, goodness. This actually is good because I bought the shoes but then didn't make it to the gym yet this week.
Here, I'll give you a little
No,
stretch music.
No, what did it say, Mr. Hat?
Right.
Is that what it said?
On the inside. I got them because I felt like my running shoes weren't giving me enough side-to-side support on the racquetball court. They were made to go straight
Right.
and were a little too high off the ground. I felt like at any moment I was...
Where'd you get them?
We went to the actual shoe store out there on
Super
Greenville.
Shoes?
Yeah.
And they'll engrave you, put your
It was
name
fun.
on it?
Yeah, right there.
That's a
I
That's
thought
a
you
nice.
had a real thing. the first, I got these shoes at it's
Those look comfy.
It's right beside Target.
You got to hold them up like this so people can see.
What's the name? What's the Burlington Coat Factory? These were $8.99.
What?
And I thought, I'm never gonna see these shoes again. I hope nobody laughs at it. When I went to the grocery store yesterday, the guy that was back in my groceries had them on. I was like, what in the world? I've never seen another pair of these shoes. You cheap son of a gun. You had $8.99 shoes. just like me.
Bobos. They make my
Oh my
feet
God,
feel
man.
fine. Bobos. They cost
God, I haven't heard that in a
$8.99.
long time.
Bobos.
Oh God, it was funny. We used to, Bobos when we were growing up, that was a term. My grandmother used to always say, "Why are you wearing them fish heads?"
Fish heads. I never heard that.
What was it?
There was a
Bobos?
time when
Bobos.
there
they make
was
your
a
feet
time.
feel fine.
Did you
There
know that
was a
term when you
time-
grew up?
Yes, because believe it or not, folks, there was a time when Chuck Taylors were not cool.
Oh, that's
They were not.
true.
They
God,
were
I
not
haven't-
accepted.
I
They were
haven't
not
heard
accepted by a
Bobos.
certain age range
Right.
of middle schoolers. And
Do you know Bobos?
no.
You never heard that? That wasn't a thing.
Oh
for
my
you.
God, that's a huge flashback.
That is a huge flashback.
No, don't remember a thing.
There was a lot of
What did it even mean?
it meant you had cheap shoes, I guess.
Off-brand.
Buy one.
Off-brand. Anything that wasn't like
Buy one, get
Nike.
one.
Yeah, buy one get one free. Yep.
It applies
was-
to so many things too, like potato chips in the white bag with the black letters and that's all it says. Bobo chips.
I've always just
Bobo
heard. I've
chips.
always just heard it as shoes. God, that's a beautiful memory. How many kids we teased about their Bobos.
It was brutal. It was like the brutality of youth. Like if you weren't wearing the right shoes, you had Bobos on. Everybody was teasing you and singing songs about your stupid shoes. Kids are cruel.
You're
There's
probably you're probably too young, but when me and my brother were young, Starsky and Hutch was like the big TV show.
too young for Starsky and Hutch.
Do you remember that when it first came out? And one of them wore like these
Aren't I
blue.
older than you? Oh, you're older than
And
me.
one of the I can't remember if it was Starsky. I think it was Starsky wore these blue like running shoes, and J.C. Penney's had them. And we went. And, I don't know. I guess they were expensive for my parents, but I remember my brother, or maybe it was me. One of us cried because we couldn't get them, and we were like, "Oh, please, it's Starsky and Hutch shoes." Like, no, stick to your Bobos. And we're like, "No, please." And I remember like a week or so later, we came home. They had bought us the Starsky and Hutch shoes. Like, yes.
Oh
the
man, you
dream
were so
shoes.
psyched to go to school the next day.
Did anybody comment? Did
And
you-
they just said, "Where's your Bobos?"
Were there the preps and grits?
Oh,
You were-
yeah.
Is that what they called them?
Yeah.
Grits. It was like
God, you're bringing back so many memories. I feel like I'm on acid.
Yeah, like
some kind of flashback.
elementary school was like a brutal tribal
grits.
caste system or whatever. It was preps and
Yeah,
grits.
you used to say like they would say who was there. You'd say just a bunch of grits.
Yeah, I was a grit.
Were
I
you?
mean, I sort of straddled a little bit, I guess.
What were the different things they had?
I guess preps and grits.
Perhaps had
you know,
those Izod
Preps had
shirts.
Izod shirts and were members of the country club, and grits were, the rest of us.
The rest of them. The ones that paid for the country club.
Right, with our bobos.
Ones that worked at the country club.
And our fake Izod shirts. We had knockoff. That was the whole problem, is that we had to wear knockoffs of what the other people were actually wearing.
Yeah, it was like
They
a
should've just-
three-legged iguana or something like that.
Right, exactly. It wasn't. If you look close enough, that's not an alligator.
I had an Izod shirt. I think I still have it. It was a red one, and I got my mom to sew like a bow and arrow going through it.
Oh wow, nice.
But I remember, but I remember grits always wore like work boots and stuff. Like, you're 13 years old. Where are you working in your work boots? You know?
Right.
They probably were working. I just didn't know it.
Did they have the other end of the spectrum for like what I would, in my day, the Henry Winkler, the greaser.
Right.
They had the lower end where you had to dress a certain way to not look good.
Right.
There was in between was where a place, you just don't matter. You're trying, but you're, middle income. But then there was that one group, not necessarily the poor ones, but they leaned that way.
Right.
They knew the neighborhood, but in my day, they had the white T-shirt with a rolled-up sleeve with a pack of cigarettes.
Right.
The Fonz was the real culture.
But the thing,
Not usually as funny.
Always had an extra pack of cigarettes rolled up in his T-shirt sleeve.
greasers or greasers, whatever, and grits, I think they were like tough guys. Like, you would never say it to their face.
Well, I think of greasers as tough guys, but grits isn't a term I just don't know.
I feel
I
like
put that more as just the normal middle class.
well, the preps
kid.
and grits was like, I think, more of like a elementary school phenomenon, whereas the greasers and goth or whatever, the punks, was more of like junior high school, when
Right.
you start to
that's
be able to have autonomy and decide your own look.
Yeah,
Whereas the elementary school was more brutal because it was just whatever your parents made you wear. And then other people could judge you by that. It was all, you weren't making those fashion decisions. I mean, you tried. By 6th grade, you were definitely pleading to get
You
where
probably
you wanted to be.
had to learn the rules too.
Yeah, it was all a surprise. You had no idea. I didn't even know I had bobos till people started making fun of me for my 3 stripes.
when I was in high school, when I was in 10th grade, first year of high school, this guy, his locker was beside me. He was like somebody that should have graduated a long time ago, but he didn't have the grades. And he actually worked. He would have to leave school and work. And I was petrified of him. I was like a little kid, and he looked like a man, and his locker was right beside mine. I was like, why is this man standing beside me? And he wasn't really mean to me, but like, you could tell
just
he
scared
thought
you.
I was a kid and like get out of his way.
Well, you were.
I know, and I was like, yes, sir. I know. I was like, why is this grown man walking around the school? He's a narc, undercover, something. Then I remember like 3rd period, he had to leave. He had like an 8-hour job. He like really worked. But I should nowadays I give him credit because he at least stayed in school and tried to get his diploma. Back then, you're just
It's
like
impressive.
Yeah. Sounds like a grit.
Yeah.
He was the only one allowed to smoke in the hallway because he was an adult. What are you looking at? I'm an adult. I'll smoke anywhere I want to.
There are some people, it seems like there's a couple people wanting a clarification on grit.
Grit.
Because I can remember grits too.
You do.
more
From
middle-
Virginia Beach.
Norfolk.
Right.
But, grits in the mid 80s, jean jackets with heavy metal,
Oh yeah.
emblazoned with the heavy metal patches and stuff like that. It was something very punk about it too. It seemed like it bled into that, though they didn't always hang out. It seemed. Mm-hmm. And then there was like the academia.
Yeah,
but then there was
never
others groups.
smart.
There was like granolas, you know. They had, you know what I'm saying? Like you had the nature kids, you know.
It is a great question. What
Theater kids are a whole other subset.
Right.
Like Norfolk. Did
Theater
you have
and
surfers?
music.
Did you have like a surf group in Norfolk?
I
Like,
didn't.
or anybody
I
else?
didn't. You know what? I never surfed, and I'm doing way too much talking. I wanted more about grits, but
Well, it's a great question because I have no idea what the origin of that word must have been. But it's fascinating that it stretched all the way to Norfolk.
But didn't grits also sort of imply you weren't too smart? Not just the way you looked. Because I never knew a smart grit.
it was more
I
like
feel it was all economics.
I feel like it had something to do with like you just weren't very smart.
Well, I have to say, if you're talking economic, you're also talking about that image, because the upper middle income people assume their kids are going to college.
Right.
And the lower end, we think they may go to college, but they're probably going to get a job.
Right.
Maybe that.
So, and I think there's a lot of resentment in one culture. The people that don't go to college, I think we've talked about this before, at least I have, but the idea that if you didn't go to college, you think you're missing a whole lot more than you did.
Right.
But you also don't appreciate that they get that job. If that job has BS on it, literally,
Right.
and you don't have any college degree, you can't get the job.
Right.
It's just not fair to them. And,
Right,
and
right.
probably they're right. Yeah, so there is a resentment there between the two, and it bridges although it's not an actual academic gap, it's a realized one by the culture.
The power of expectations too.
Exactly.
Which is definitely
Exactly.
shapes your youth so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, and it shapes the way people look at you, because that's the way you're looking at yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way teachers treat you sometimes. You just you run into that a lot.
Right.
And
So kids, remember the Jabber Jawn motto to treat everyone equal, love everyone as best you can.
Yeah, that was a nice little pledge you came up with for the intro there. Do you remember it? Should we recite it?
I insert name.
Yeah,
I,
Kyle
Nathan.
Andrew Hogg, here to promise. It's so new, I can't really.
Yeah, we have to. We need to get it on the certificate.
Oh, I could probably look on Facebook and read it.
I like the sound of these Jabber Jawn Frosted Flakes, though.
For some reason, when I was driving home, I started thinking, remember, like in the old days, didn't you get cereal that had like a code book or a decoder ring or something? You'd watch Lassie, and it would like you could figure out what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We should definitely have something like that.
So don't forget to send in your guess for the password or the secret word.
Well, there's a toy in every box.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
That's as good as birds and libraries are free. God, there's a toy in every box. That is one of the best things you've ever said. Gosh. Somebody out there write that down for me, because I'll probably forget it. There's a toy in every box.
And I have nothing more to say. That's it.
Gosh. My ex-wife's brothers were two of the best guys I've ever met in my entire life, but they must have been lazy. They had a toy box. It was upstairs, and their bedroom was upstairs. And they were too lazy to go downstairs and go to the bathroom, so they would just pee in the toy box, and the next day open it up and play with the toys again.
Wait a second.
That's disgusting.
That is horrible. You're talking about little kids, right?
Yeah, they were like 10, 11, 12 years old.
I think you need to be more selective about the stories you tell on here. Did you run that by anybody before you threw it out here?
Family secrets.
Did you see it? Did anybody might be offended or at least disgusted by that image?
There's a toy.
And not, like trying to go to bed tonight and thinking about what you just said.
It is upsetting.
Do you ever think about that before you start telling these weird stories?
So just remember, kids, there's a toy soaked in urine in every box.
Oh,
God,
my
I love
God.
that there's a toy in every box.
That's terrible.
So what's up with the gloves?
I'm cold.
Are you?
Yeah, and I looked so good today because I had to go to the doctor that I didn't want to. I saw some of the show and I had that thing last week. I looked like such an invalid.
Well, you do look good today.
I
I'll
wanted
tell you
to look
what.
a little bit better. I told y'all I was bragging earlier. I washed my hair today, and I haven't been able to say that in this year or so. Well, I've washed it a couple times accidentally, but that's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
No.
So did you bring a lesson for us today?
I did not. I had a couple that started to form, and the buds were starting to come out, and I didn't water them. And I thought I'd just throw this out because I'm curious about it, and it could lead into a lesson.
Uh-huh.
So we'll just open it up. And I also thought when I analyzed the last one that I did too much talking, and I just felt like I dominated too much of the time.
Hey,
So
anything that fills the show with something is
Well-
good stuff.
that's not true.
All right.
That's the lesson.
Case in point.
That's the lesson I'm trying to teach tonight, right there.
Simply not
Some
true.
things need to be edited out. The problem is we both have the wrong editor. I need a better editor and so do you. And you've been pretty, of course, you don't have an editor, so that's your advantage. You just let it go because it's your basement.
No, I do have an editor, though.
Oh, I know. You have yours is working very well, though. You're done pretty good.
I have a lot of experience.
Exactly. You've been raked over the coals a lot more than we have.
It is fascinating to me when I listen to bootlegs of me on the road from back in the day in my touring days. I would curse like a sailor just naturally, just
Really?
like. But in Stanton, there was always the Nana factor
Yeah.
for one. But she was the quintessential factor or whatever, and
Yep.
and the Nana quotient always made me do a completely different show, like in Stanton, than I would do anywhere else. And when I would
Now
try,
explain
to mix them,
explain to the audience what you mean by that.
well, Nana's my grandmother, and she
Our matriarch.
the matriarch, yep. And she had very classic sensibilities, and was a very sweet and religious woman, and didn't like profanity or uncomfortable things and awkwardness, and she always had a deep abiding love for me, and that was something I always treasured, and I never wanted to make her uncomfortable or embarrassed or anything like that. So the notion that she would be at my performance, I was always trying to just be.
You were singing to her.
I was singing to her, yeah. But then I was here for so long and stopped touring that I'd sort of forgotten about that other side of me, and I would listen to some bootlegs and I'd be like, "Holy moly!" Just drop. But on the other hand, it's funny just how different the shows are, because you can't imagine Richard Pryor, or think about comedians or whatever, whether they were blue or what the opposite of that is. You have, clean comics, and then you had blue comics, and it's a fascinating difference between all those things, and what that energy is and how it feels.
Now, what you're talking about doing, though, when you say you've got these two different sides, let me just say what it sounds like: a teacher who has to go and teach fifth graders for one class, and then he has to go teach 11th graders in the next class.
Right.
It's two different cultures that you're talking about. So you don't want to give the wrong lesson to the wrong class.
Right.
So you learn to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas your comedians, they're just doing it, they're trying to insult all of those. That's one of the things that the blue, which some color comedians always, the Lewis Black type of humor.
Right.
It's always attacking. George Carlin,
Right.
he's the best. But, they're always bringing things into perspective from the other ways of doing it.
Right, right.
Yeah, but if you take those ways, there's reasons why you do those things too. That's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, it wouldn't really be appropriate after doing a lifetime of Nana shows here to come out and do that show. If it was, you'd have to really want to do it and understand what you were doing.
Right.
But you could do it because it's still honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Nana cares anymore.
Well, it's weird because I don't know. For Christmas, they gave me this book called Einstein's
Oh, here we
Dreams that has been bothering me. It's driving me crazy. But this ties in. One of his dreams is that each thing we do has you do it 3 different ways. Everything you do it. So, like, maybe you're remembering your clean version, but also in one of your other realities, you just went ahead and did the dirty version.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you remember. Like this, Nathan remembers this one. The other one, you were like, I don't care if she's out there. I'm just going to go ahead and cut loose anyway.
Right.
And I'm like, man, what if that really is weird? I mean, what if that really is true? And then another one, this is the worst one. Let's say y'all insulted me and told me I couldn't be on the show anymore, so I left. And I went home and I got depressed and I got on Facebook, called y'all idiots and started drinking and hated you. How do we know that me doing that is not what led y'all to kick me off the show? We all think time runs in this linear thing. How do we know that me being mad at you and saying stuff didn't make you earlier kick me off the show? Man, that book is freaking me out reading it.
I guess it's as liberating as it is stifling. These
Right. But so your grandmother might have had to sit through some shows in another reality when you were just up there tearing it up.
right, F-bombs all over the place.
She's like, oh, Nathan, my dear Nathan, what are you doing?
It was funny because then when I started doing a lot of live streaming here, and then there was always the Nana quotient in my mind because she might be watching. So I would always keep it clean, and then I would have friends on from out of state that would come, and they'd be on tour, and they'd come and appear on my show, and they were so, like they would just be natural and
Nathan,
just be
right?
cussing right and left, and I would be like, oh, and they're like, what is going on here? Like, why is Nathan being so weird?
Well, my mom's told me she's never watched this show because she's afraid if I knew she was watching, I would act differently.
Is it true?
Oh, yeah.
So she watches, but she doesn't tell you she
in
watches.
In one of those third ways, she's watching. But,
So she still hadn't watched it?
Well, my sister-in-law was watching one time, and she said, you should come over here and just watch a little bit of it. And she did watch a little bit of it, which I don't think we did. I think it was a pretty decent one.
Oh, good.
Did we all behave?
Yeah, we behaved.
But I mean, that's a talent, though, to be like you said, like Richard Pryor or these guys, to be able. You don't care who's in the audience; you're just gonna say whatever you want to say.
Made him a lot of money.
Yeah, it's interesting the difference because most people, most comedians I loved wouldn't. I don't know. I guess they're all different as I'm thinking through them.
Well, did you see when?
But the
Chappelle-
idea for a lot of them to do a clean show would be like such a hard
Right.
thing to fathom. Like I just don't even know what that means.
Right.
But they would, you would imagine as you're coming up as a stand-up comedian, you probably like get corporate gigs or
Right.
school gigs or
Right.
whatever, where like you might be a blue comedian by nature,
Right.
telling dirty jokes at night, but now you got to go do a clean set somewhere. I'm sure that's iconic for all of them. Like I bet they all have stories of the clean sets they've had to do in their career. Like, I remember one.
Well, did you see when Chappelle got the Mark Twain Award? you know, like there with like the president.
Yeah, I did see
and he's
that.
like smoking a cigarette, and his mom's up there, and he's just saying all this dirty stuff. I was like, oh man. I mean, it's like a talent to have the courage not to tone it. I mean, I'm sure he toned it down some, but he still were pressing the edge pretty hard.
It's a very fascinating line in the sand, and how exciting it is to step over it, to cross that line of what's not appropriate. I've always been too fascinated by that. I've so many times, especially when I was younger, at the family dinner table or whatever it was, would want to say the most disruptive thing, like just sort of fascinated by that disruption that could be caused by foul language or disrespect or an observation or a challenge of someone's fundamental beliefs or any of that kind of stuff. Like that conflict was always too fascinating to me. I've always had a part of myself that always wants to test those boundaries and see, like, well, what's going to happen if I say this wrong thing? What's the thing I'm not supposed to say? I can't wait to say it. I just can't.
Wow.
It's most noticeable after 4 beers.
Yeah, that is so true. It's so heartbreakingly true. It's so funny how that happens.
It was, my brother was in town. My brother and his wife came to town last weekend. So it was my mom and me, my brother and his wife. And me and my brother spent almost half the time just making jokes to each other, like busting out laughing. Like, what are y'all laughing at? Nothing. Or just saying stuff we could never say out loud, you know, to them. And just on our side of the table, like, I'm just dying laughing. Like, what's so funny? Oh, you know, you could barely catch your breath. Nothing.
You always had a little bit of that subversiveness.
Yeah. But I never did it to be subversive. I did it to get away with something.
How's that?
Well, I wanted something and I needed to be subversive to get it, and so I was subversive.
Gotcha.
But I never was, in other words, the adrenaline rush was not what I was after. And I think sometimes that's what people are doing with that type of attitude, that,
Right.
you know, challenging the guy that wants to fight in the bar. And, you know, they're looking for an adrenaline rush. And I was never an adrenaline biggie.
Right.
I use it, but I don't abuse it.
Right.
Now, did the opportunity for a laugh just ever approach you where you couldn't pass it up? Like, I know this is inappropriate, but I have to say it to get the laugh?
Well, it's to create that energy. It could be a laugh, or it could be a conflict, or just to see how somebody reacts, pulling a chain just to see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But there's you're getting something going.
I was watching somebody it was probably on YouTube or something the other night, and they were expressing themselves. I don't remember the context or anything, but the thing that really stuck out to me was they were just trying to say what they thought about a topic, but they were trembling. And I related to that so much and there's even a great Bukowski quote about if it makes you tremble or your voice shake, like that's the thing you have to say or whatever. But there's that energy, especially if I think about it in different ways, but like if you're in a conversation with somebody about something that's important to you, and you disagree, and you get into that argument and you're trying to express yourself, that trembling is so fascinating to me. Like I feel like it's a detriment a lot of times, but you see it in public speaking and things like that, but I don't even have a point. It's just a fascinating thing how much we care about what we think about things, and how that can make your whole soul tremble and shake trying to express it to somebody else or to the world is just such interesting energy. And a lot of times, like if I'm in a political conversation or something with somebody I disagree with, it can be really detrimental because I'm bringing all of a sudden the energy's too much. It's too up, and everybody's just sort of trembling and shaking. I wish there was a a breath you could just take that would just get all that out of your system, so you could just express yourself calmly. But there's just such an intensity attached to our convictions sometimes. I don't know, anybody have any thoughts on that journal idea?
I think that's impressive. Yeah, I think you explained it well.
My desire for a laugh is so powerful that I can't. I mean, sometimes I'll say stuff that I know, but this is not. I went to a nice. Somebody invited me and some friends over to a dinner, a nice long table, a beautiful dinner, and their kids were there. They were talking about things their parents said, and they were going around the table. You know, my dad said this, my mom said that. A very wonderful thing. And they go, Kyle, what'd you say about that? I said, my mom said, fuck the police. And they all just like, what? And then they just, what?
When was this?
Not too long ago.
Not too long ago. This is
What in the world?
It was totally inappropriate, but it was so funny I could not say it.
Oh my God! Did your body twitch all over?
They were like looking at me. Then like
Oh
a
my
couple of them laughed because they knew it was me and that I was kidding around. But they were like just like, oh, that was not what we were expecting. And sometimes the need for a laugh is just like
Oh
so
my goodness!
overpowering.
That was a remarkable story. You continue to astound me every week.
Oh, they're still
No,
friends.
but going back to you, let's back up just, I was lost in another thought. But getting back to what you were saying about what you just said, I was equating it, while you were talking, I was thinking about neural connections in your brain and how, you were dealing with an emotional thing there. But somehow a little neuron slid off and hit one that hit a motor thing in another part of your brain, because everybody's connected. And so it just went around in there and it hit this one muscle, and that's that twitch you're getting. So they're connected. So it's just an autonomic response, that going back to what is firing in your brain that's creating that.
But what is
and
it?
you
but-
said, go ahead.
What is it about that? We could sit here and have a conversation about lots of stuff. You could totally disagree with me, and I wouldn't get upset. But then, like Nathan said, there's some things, you just without even knowing it, you're like, oh, this is really or not really upset you, but you get so emotional about it. And I don't even know why. It's like,
it's
why is
really,
Nathan
it's
thinking that he's so
fascinating.
wrong?
Right.
It's fascinating to analyze that.
Right, it really is.
And sometimes you come up with some really interesting stuff, like pepperonis on trees.
Is it more your brain wanting to convince somebody, or your emotions? You think?
Well, your emotions are in your brain. I mean, they're all in there together.
Well, I mean, is it the intellect of the conversation, or is it the emotion that you feel for the?
Well, it's how you feel about the situation.
And how you feel about yourself.
Involved with that situation.
Like, I feel like there's some kind of idea, that's the part I think that would be so healthy to part with, is that there's this some kind of way your identity, your whole soul is attached to this idea or something that you're
you're putting more on the line
than you should be, right?
Than you really are.
There's a friend I have that we have political debates on in the email, and every now and again I'm like shaking as I'm responding, and that's what I'm thinking. Like that is like, it's too much.
Well,
and it gets in the way of me expressing my thought clearly.
I think that might be a signal from your body saying you need to get up and we'll take a walk. Get away from it for a second,
right? Because
you're too involved to concentrate. You can get too much emotion into something, like a fighter. If you just run on strict emotion, but this one guy that's got the emotion, but it's under control, but he's also analyzing your moves. He's going to beat you.
Right.
And so, as a performer, it'd be the same thing. If you get too emotional, you're going to lose it. if you don't get emotional enough, you're going to lose.
Right.
So you got to find
That
that
is a
right.
delicate balance.
You got to find that balance for everything. So, in a common discussion with someone around the room, I think you got to get up, walk away, and say, "What's that all about?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I doing that?" And
What do you think the answer usually is? That
it's based on an insecurity about you've been attacked in some way by
but
something
in a way
he said.
that you feel vulnerable about.
Yeah, and in a way that you might be guilty of.
Right.
So you first look at the things you are guilty of, and then you think about the things that you might be accused of being guilty of, and then you work from there. But, sometimes,
Is that what it usually is?
not all, I was going to say, I can't really say that. Sometimes it's someone trying to hurt you or trying to do the same thing to you that you just were thinking about doing to them. They're not really, but they're saying something that's off base and they know it's off base. So sometimes it's premeditated from another angle.
Mm-hmm. Well, the worst thing is if you're having a conversation like this, and I can't think of an exact example, but like I'm getting all worked up, I'm trying to, like you said, you can feel your voice shaking, and then they'll go, "What are you getting so worked up about?" I'm like, that even makes it even worse. Why aren't you worked up about it too? They make you feel like you're foolish because you're getting you're like, then that makes you feel like, oh my God, the whole world knows that I'm sitting over here.
Well, and some people just don't show it. You do show it, and you show it, and then you admit you show it. But some people are feeling it but don't show it, and you don't know where they, and that's usually to their advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what one thing you don't like is that twitch can give you away. It's like a tell.
Right.
But sometimes it's not even stuff you really care that much about.
No, sometimes that's connected in a totally different way. Could be happy birthday.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's not all bad, but it's just the wiring, how we're wired.
The insecurity thing, I think, is a healthy insight.
I think so too. That's, at least for me, that's what it usually is. I go back and look at why that would offend me.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first question. Why would that offend me? What about it?
There's definitely a lot of...
And sometimes, it's a righteous thing. You should be offended. You should be
Right.
upset. But then you go back and you can handle it because you understand what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's better to take that time out.
No, do you think that's tied into like stage fright at all? Like when you go up and you're like,
oh, definitely. It's just where the stage fright, the fright wins.
But so why do you have stage fright? Because you
I
feel
think,
It is the
I think
exact
just
same
feel
energy.
insecure.
the same energy just taken to the extreme.
Because you
That's
feel
why I say
insecure about what
it
you're getting ready to
won.
do.
The fear won.
You see a lot of people that, they say that speaking in public is a lot of people, it's first place in people's most
me.
common fears.
That's
like
me.
death, dying is like second or third.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking in public is number one
That's me.
in all the things. But you can see it for someone that is terrified about it. You can see that tremble immediately the moment no matter what they're saying. It could be the most benign topic, but it's interesting how similar the tremble is to someone that's trying to speak passionately about something they care about, especially to someone they disagree with, and someone that's just terrified to speak to anybody about anything at all.
Well,
it's a very similar shake.
It's almost not the fear of speaking in front of people, it's the fear of knowing that you're so scared. Sometimes I'm like, I could get up and say this, but they're all going to hear my voice. And they're all going to say, oh my God, that poor guy is up there. If they didn't know it, I could probably get myself through it. But since they all know it, I feel like it's just, the weight of the world's on me.
Well, the way I handled it, and I didn't speak in too many places, but what I always did, like in the classroom, was just pick out a couple kids in the front and basically talk to them and lecture to them. Mm-hmm. And then I'd forget about the fact that there might be more of them out there. I was just, so I living in denial, but that's what I did. That was a tool I used.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. I think some performers do that, don't they?
Yep.
One of the kindest, most generous things I've ever seen in my entire life. When I worked in New Jersey, there was a girl that didn't like speaking in front of people, and she was in some department. She had to get up and give a talk, and everybody knew she was petrified, to get up there. It was like, 150 people in this big auditorium. She got up and talked, and trembling and very, but got herself together. And then some a-hole in the back started just quit peppering her with questions. And she was just falling apart. One of her friends stood up and said, "Why don't we have this discussion later, instead of not in front of everybody?" And it just shut that woman down. And you could see the girl in the front. She just wanted to run off stage and hug her, "Thank you for saving me." And we all wanted to say something, but we were all nervous wrecks too. "Oh my God, are you a moron? Let this poor person be. She's about ready to collapse up there."
Was the person just ignorant of that?
I think
energy?
they didn't. It was the same thing that you talk about. They just didn't agree with what she was saying. They got their ire up and they were just going after her. And if they had sat down outside later at a table, they could have discussed it very decently. But having to answer questions on the fly up there, you could tell she was just sweat and her voice was oh. And it was horrible. It was like torture. And her friend stood up and said, "Leave her alone, we'll talk about this later." And I just wanted to say, "Yes, you're the best person here."
The interesting thing is, I think before we started talking about it, there was a part of me that thought that some of the tremble would come from you being so upset that someone else could think what they're thinking. But now I'm thinking it's not as much that wouldn't make you emotional in the same way.
Exactly. I think that's true, because I hear different opinions all the time, but most of them don't bother me. You're entitled to your opinion, because
Right.
I know my opinions on things don't hit with a lot of people, and I understand why, or sometimes I don't. But it's their business. That's it. It's their business to do that. But it shouldn't necessarily attack you.
Right. Right.
Now, do you think that's a power? I'm going to use the term everybody knows, Karen. You think that's a power they have? They can just come at you and take you off balance, and you're so unprepared for somebody to come at you like that in public that you don't know what to do. You see these videos are complaining about, you're just weird stuff, You're like, what would I do? I'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry, it's just somebody coming at you like that just takes you so. It's not even a discussion. It's just somebody attacking you for.
Well, yeah.
It took too long for my Pizza Hut order. Oh, all right, everybody, calm down, But I wonder if that's a power some people have, and they can use that to get what they want. I'm not paying because my pizza was 5 minutes late.
Well, it's a trick. It's not power, it's a trick that people use if they get away with it. Of course, somebody punches them in the face one time, they might stop doing it. You learn how to behave from your experiences.
It's a dangerous topic, but I feel like there's a lot of people that do sort of revel in making people tremble.
Right.
The thing they like about their belief system is so upsetting to
So what
people. What
you're trying to tell all these people is that there's still a lot of assholes out there.
Right.
That's what's true. There's just a lot of assholes out there in the world. And to paint that picture any differently would be a lie.
Right. It's
just the way it is. But you know what?
You're not wrong.
There's a hell of a lot of good people. A hell of a lot more good people. Just got to run into an asshole about once a day.
So in the chat, someone has chimed in saying they have a 9-year-old daughter who is a shy child. Feels like telling her she needs to overcome her shyness has backfired. She's become more secure in her shyness.
more secure in her shyness. That's a beautiful concept right there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what, I love that. Because we've been talking about it like something you want to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
It might be the best way to be.
and I purposely, I was hoping that would be one of the reactions. It ends. I didn't give you the very end, but this poster said, "Not sure how to help her," and maybe that's not. Maybe that's
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
I can definitely appreciate that from a parental. I'm not a parent, but how frustrating that must be to have a shy child, because you know that there's so many experiences they're never going to experience. Like there's so much that people have to offer in terms of wisdom or humor or things like there's just so many experiences that you want your child to experience, but if they're not wanting to actively participate in the world like that, I can't imagine. You have kids, you've been around kids your whole life, like any insight into that topic with shy children?
Well, first of all, every child is different.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know that until you go through it, but that's the way it turns out. So there is no set rule for that. And I think this was a good example of that, where in a lot of cases shyness might be insecurity. In another case, shyness might be good taste.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to tell you who I am or what I think. I don't really care if you know.
Right.
So I'm going to stay in here. I know I'm safe. And, you know, it's nicer in here. I don't have to listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so they decide to. So I don't know. I guess all I'm saying as a parent, you have to allow that human being that's becoming themselves to figure it out. And so you do exactly what you say. You'd like for them to experience a lot of good things, but, you know, and you'd like for them never to experience bad things. Well, neither one of those things is going to happen. They are going to experience some bad things, but, you know, that's just life.
Mm-hmm.
So you try to control it, but we're humans. Can't fight it. It's life.
Mm-hmm.
But I am shy. I mean, I talk on this show like I don't have any fear. Like if I'm at work and I say I have to call somebody, I have to sit there for a couple of minutes to make a phone call.
To get up the gumption.
And I have to tell them, you know, your vehicle's been added to your policy. I'm just like, oh my God, what if they ask me a question? What if they're like, just make a damn phone call. What's wrong with you? I'm like, oh my God, I'm so, you know, I never
What
order.
what is it that you?
I don't know. I never order food because I don't want to have to talk to anybody coming to the door. I've never ordered food at my house once. I've never, if I get something, like if I get a shirt, if I go to the store and buy something that doesn't fit, I'll just keep it because I don't want to have to take it back and tell anybody this doesn't fit. It's just like I'd rather just not have to deal with it.
I just got to peek from behind the curtain and say, you never come across to me as
I know
that. You seem very outgoing. I know, you have a lot of stories to tell of people you've interacted with and things you're doing every weekend.
I know, it's so, but
but
the thing is, the best thing is that for that young child, find somebody that'll look out for you. When I first moved to New Jersey, I think I've told this story. I was petrified. You know, I was like, I didn't know anybody, and we had to go to this company dinner. And I was like, oh my God, I don't want, please, Colin's sick and I don't want to go to this thing. So my friend, it was actually Margie, she drove me there and we just rode around. I was like, where are we going? She goes, I thought you didn't want to go. I said, well, I don't. She goes, well, we're just going to tell them we were lost. So she just drove around for like half an hour. So we get there real late and everybody's like, where you been? You know, everybody's eating. They're like, oh, you know, we got lost. And I was like, oh God, thank you so much. So then we're eating and she got seated at another table from me. And then she comes over and taps me on the shoulder, so we're leaving. And I said, what? And she goes, come on, we're just walking out of here. We'd only been there like maybe 45 minutes. So I got, and she was like bold as could be, you know. So everybody's like, where are you going? I said, we're leaving, you know. I was petrified. We just left. It's like, why are we leaving? She goes, oh my God, you were so uncomfortable over there. We're just getting you out of here. I was like, oh my God, this is the best day of my life. You know, somebody saved me. But talking about the woman that had to get up in front of the crowd and talk, I was an underwriter there, and everybody eventually had to get up in front of that crowd and talk. And I told my friends, if it ever gets to my name, I'll quit. And they go, no, you won't. I said, yes, well, I'll quit before I'll get up in front of all these people and talk. They're like, no, you won't. And I had I was serious. If they had ever said, "All right, Kyle, you have to get in front of all these people and talk about your product," I'd have just said, "All right, I'm out of here."
out.
I couldn't have done it. It would have been. It would have. I couldn't have. I don't think I could have done it.
Well, how about now?
Well, when this show first started, I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do this. I mean, something about this situation feels comfortable. I don't know, especially now that I've been doing it for a while. With the first couple, like some of my friends were like, "Oh my God, you look like a deer in the headlights." Like you're sitting there like, "Oh," like, you know, you look so scared.
It's funny because I can completely relate to that, but I feel like I'm both. Like I can be an introvert or I can be an extrovert. I can be very phobic of interacting with people. And, you know, like, there'll be a knock on the door and I'll just freeze. I'm not even going to answer it. Like, I can't people right now.
Right.
On the other hand, like, I can people with the best of them. I can strike up deep conversations with perfect strangers at bus stops without batting an eye. Like, I can relate to both things.
Well, that's like for when your show, like if say he
the
wasn't,
phone call thing, so with you.
but like your show Saturday, if he wasn't going, I would, because I want to see you, I would overcome it. But my big fear would be that somebody was going to talk to me. But then I have the two equal fears. Somebody's going to talk to me, or I'm going to stand out because I'm not talking to anybody else. Like, oh my God, should I talk to somebody and be totally uncomfortable, or should I be like the complete weirdo standing over there not doing anything? They're like, oh.
They're both equally terrifying.
Well, we're going to go with this. From now on, when we go out together, you're going to be my bodyguard.
Well, going out with you is
That's
easy because you like have like these people around you talking and laughing, and then you're like, "This is Kyle." They're like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hey."
Yeah, it's good. It is good. But what I've always wanted to have is a bodyguard.
Right.
I just
This could
always
work.
wanted to have to afford one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you know, because you, in other words, I want you to play your tough guy.
Okay. Stand back.
You're greaser. Yeah.
Steve over there with some kind of grit. I don't know where he found that guy.
You gotta learn that.
That prep's got a grit with him.
Yeah.
It must be
Well,
a
you gotta
bodyguard.
learn how to hold your face. That snarl.
Right. You got-
Now,
Pre-snarl.
do you think
look.
it's the way you're brought up that makes you shy? Well, one thing that people say to me, anybody that's met my parents, like whenever I go out with people in a place I don't know, I'm so quiet, and they meet my parents. My dad would talk nonstop to anybody. So my friends would say, "Now I know why you don't talk. You never had a chance to." Your dad would go into a room full of people and know everybody. Like, ah. So you just followed him around. You know, never said a word. But do you think it's like you think shyness is like learned, or you're born that way?
I think it's mostly learned, but it does go back to your nature. So I'd say it's both, and just yeah. Who knows if it's the dosage, or the power of the drug, or the power of your mind, or the weakness of your mind, or just the kind of day you've had anyway.
Right.
Right.
All those variables go in, and that's what we're talking about. There's a lot more variables than just that. I mean, everything's complicated.
A person's nature is such a fascinating idea.
Yeah. I mean, I see it, and I see the young ones. I've been around long enough to see people grow up.
Right.
I've known them when they were babies, and I know them as fathers, and I'm not talking about my family, but just watching other kids around.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at Daniel's, Joe's friends that he went to high school with. Well, I coached them in Little League. So I've seen them since they were 6.
Right.
And now they're 40 years old. And they have a child that looks like them. I've seen all of that. It's pretty powerful, pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was getting at was that within that, every child, no child is like a carbon copy of anything. Physically they might be, but in terms of their personalities and who they become and who they are, they're on their own. They do that. There's something about them that's special, and they're unique. And that's just because we got so many neurons.
Mm-hmm.
You can't program that many neurons. You just have to send them out and see what happens. And that's where your experiences come in.
Right.
And they do mold so much of how you feel about the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Like when the show starts and you just start talking, I'm always amazed. Like if I had to do that, I would be so. Like one time.
Well, you'll do it next week.
No.
Yeah, next
No
week
way.
you're starting the show.
But I remember.
Wait a minute, he'll quit.
I remember this was a long time ago. Something happened. You both had to leave for like 2 minutes, and I
was peeing in a bucket.
I can sit here and run my mouth for 90 minutes, but once you both were gone, I was just like. I was just sitting here like I didn't know what to say. I couldn't even think of a word. I was like, oh, like my brain just shut down. I was like horrible. When you came back, I was like, oh my goodness, like this goodness.
Thank goodness. Well, you're kicking off the show next week, no matter what. We're shooting for the Barbie review next week. We had a scheduling conflict, so our goal is...
No, not next week.
Not next week?
Oh, we're watching it the 21st. Next week's Valentine's Day.
Oh, so we're not doing it for Valentine's Day?
You want to sit around with me, your dad? And...
Oh, the Wednesday is a Valentine's
Yeah.
Day. I see. Well,
Catherine loves you. Remember that when you don't remember when Valentine's Day is.
well, Catherine and I were both joking Valentine's Day just the other day. There's always that element that it was invented by Hallmark to sell cards or whatever. It feels like a more corporate, consumer-generated holiday than the others.
My parents,
Hey, John Dotson's in the chat.
My parents, for as long as I
Hey,
can remember,
John.
passed back the same card, just sign it each year. It's like the even years, my mom would give it to my dad, but sign it each year. Then my dad would give it back to her the next year. They would just trade the card back. The card had 40 signatures on it. They would just pass it back and forth.
Remember the year Granddad, or the time Granddad gave Nana the same card 2 years in a row, the exact same card.
Oh my God.
It was so sweet though, because you could just tell that when he saw that card, that's the one. And the same phenomenon just happened the next year. I got a video actually of them telling the story and Nana holding up both cards.
Oh my gosh.
That's in my archives. Lex should have it queued up over there. I had no idea.
The same one of probably my best male friend in the world, my ex-wife's brother, the one that peed in the toys. He took his daughters to buy his wife a birthday card. And his wife didn't have kids till she was in her early 40s or something. But she was very concerned about that. Thought she just had no normal concern to starting a family late. So the card that he got, he didn't even really look at it. It said, "Dear Grandma, happy birthday." And she had a fit. She opens this card. She's been worried ever since she's had the kids that she's too old. She's like, "Dear Grandma, happy birthday." And she went tearing up the steps all of a sudden. And he was like, "What's the matter?" He read it. He's like, "Oh my God, what have I done?"
Oh, that's terrible. Another wonderful, terrible story. I love it.
It's going to be an animated series.
Oh my
coming
God.
soon, folks. So we never got back to what you were going to say about the lesson today. You were about to say something.
I think we're running out of time, aren't we?
I don't think so.
You should tell us about. I asked him how temperature works.
And
He said I can talk all day about it, but we didn't have all day to get here.
I did not. I said that I used to give a lecture.
Do you know how temperature works, or what? I thought it was just the sun. What do you think? What do you think causes the temperature?
Mercury. But in
That
the old
causes-
days.
That measures it, doesn't cause it.
That's a smart young
yeah,
man.
that was good. That was
Put
good.
him in the front of the class. He might go to college. Because we let a few of you boys in
No,
to
but
go to college just so they won't think we're prejudiced.
no, but he said it tied into the lesson last week of density and matter and stuff.
Well, about that mercury. I don't want to talk about temperature.
Yeah, I mean that's a very.
That's going to take.
There's so many variables.
It's a real hot topic.
Oh! Yeah.
But it could go cold at any
All right.
Yeah, it's
No, what I was looking at, and we can, this can be shorter. I've been thinking about, and you know it better than I do, what's the difference or what is your definition of a delusion as opposed to an illusion? How do they relate? What are we, how do you perceive those
I guess
those
the
words?
distinction I would make there is an illusion is you're purposely being fooled by an external force or source, whereas a delusion you're being fooled by an internal source.
Very good.
That's pretty much.
Wow.
I was thinking in terms of the direction it goes. If it's coming from, like you just, the first one, if it's coming from something, a person or a view or picture, and it's coming at you, and you're interpreting the image in the wrong way or a different way, that's an illusion. But it doesn't have to be viewing. It could be smelling or hearing. But if it's coming from inside of your previous thought patterns, then it's a delusion. Is that what you're thinking?
Sort of, although a lot of illusions are purposefully playing on what they know are your preconceptions.
Right. But I'm speaking of the general definition of illusion. You're thinking of illusions performed on you. But just like the other day, I'm looking out at the window, and it looked like there was a blue jay on the wire in the yard. But then my eyes aren't very good, and when I put the binoculars on him, it wasn't. It was a crow in the telephone wire on the other block. So I had a visual illusion of size when I was looking at I thought it was the one in front, but actually it was the bigger one, but the image was the same. So that was an illusion.
Right.
And you do illusions with the tricks and you're an illusionist. But so that's my idea. But I was just, illusions don't have to be visual.
Right.
And,
Now, like, if you could say a Trump supporter is delusional, but could you say that they were illusional?
I wouldn't say they were illusional.
Because they're believing all the stuff that's coming into them?
I think they're taking information. Someone who is delusional is putting what comes in and reconstructing it and doing it incorrectly. So they're creating a false image as opposed to seeing a false image.
Right.
So they're wrong in the way they're analyzing, and that wrong can be caused by all kinds of things. It can be caused by an illusion, but it can create a delusion because you use that just like the pepperoni analogy. I have that in my head. I learned one last week was fascinating. I couldn't believe when I watched the show to analyze, our stuff or just to see me. You don't, to watch TV and see yourself, it's wonderful.
It's fun.
No, I hate it. But what was interesting was that I literally was surprised to learn, I didn't understand that a baby in the womb wasn't breathing oxygen. I just never thought about it, that they were getting their oxygen from their mother's blood.
Right.
And then that got me to thinking this question, and Kethra, or you can tell me, does that mean that the mother's blood and the baby's blood are always the same blood type?
Ooh.
I thought of that on the way over
That's
here.
a good question.
Yeah, because it doesn't make any, see, it can't be, but I never even realized, that's a delusion. That's just, I was wrong. I was thinking they were in there breathing. There was, just any thinking on any level, that was impossible.
Right.
But I didn't ever think about it.
Right.
And I think human beings are prone to do that a whole lot.
Right.
Now, for some reason, not to get off what you're talking about, but I'm obsessed with illusional now. Let's say we were a team, and Lex just, we're gonna go out there, we're gonna beat them, we're gonna, this is our team, we're gonna win this game. Are we all going out on the court illusional?
Well, that wouldn't be it. That would be delusional.
No, because we're believing what he's telling
What
us,
he's-
but we
That's
actually
just
believe
hype.
it.
We're just feeling hype. We're like so hype we would win. by
So
the way.
is that illusional to believe that we turn that victory thought into? I mean, I've never heard anybody say illusional before. Delusional, of course, we all know. You believe something that's wrong. But what if you believe something that is a benefit to you and is?
I don't think that's an illusion. I think it is for some reason creating a delusion when you see it. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't sound that good.
Well, exactly. I think delusional means implies something not good. You're delusional. That means you're not thinking right. That's what I
It
think.
means it's something you believe from, that's wrong. It's just wrong.
Right. So what if you believe something that's right, and you go out there and win the game? Were you illusional during the game?
You were basing your behaviors
On your illusions?
on an illusion.
It's hard for me to
I don't know.
to,
No,
to think about that in the same
yeah.
context.
I'll get back to you on that.
And an illusion, by definition, is
No, wait a minute. Are you staying with the A?
No,
Illusion or illusion?
ill.
So but what's an illusion?
No, that's just you're like alluding to something.
Yeah, that's not what we're
related
talking
at all.
about.
So is there illusion even a
like
word?
Nathan,
But-
there's a guitar right
I'm
next
alluding
to
to
you,
this.
just sitting there. That's illusion.
Oh, like you're
If I
you're
was
you're
like,
trying to hint that I
yeah,
should pick it up.
Right? Would that be illusion?
You're
That-
alluding.
I feel like that rings true.
alluding to-
But the idea that, like, all right, so if I'm a terrible athlete, but someone convinces me I could win because of the hype of their pep talk, and I go out there and I believe that, and I do better than I should have, because
Right.
is that an illusion, delusion? Or
It's inspiration.
It's
right?
inspiration.
It's
It's
inspiration caused by a delusion.
A delusion that was inspired by the hype of the person.
Right.
So encouragement is what?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, not necessarily. Yeah,
I mean, a lot of cases, like the Super Bowl, I think both teams can have serious ideas that they're going to win. Why shouldn't they?
right. Well,
So it's not a hype at all, but it's getting them fired up.
right.
So is the outcome of the game what defines if it was a delusion or not?
Exactly. The reality defines whether you decide the case that way or not, or whether you were right or not.
Is anybody writing in on this one? We need some.
Okay.
We need the opinion of someone who's shy.
Sadler does say delusion is an illusion you make for yourself. And then he came back to say the power of positive delusion.
The power of positive delusion.
No, there's a visual illusion. Is there a visual illusion?
No. Illusion, you're making up illusion and to confuse us.
Yeah.
You were sent here by,
Wait a minute. So,
If I go like this, if I'm just looking at Nathan, I'm like,
yeah. I'm alluding to another subject. What if we were talking about something and somebody just showed a picture of something over there? Isn't that a visual illusion? To get us to talk about what that picture is?
There might be something there. I'm not sure.
This is what shy people think about when they.
after you've had a sandwich and you look down at the plate and there's a little crumbs and little pieces of tomato. That's what's on your plate. Sorry. I'm losing it. I've had a rough day, and I've got to get up at 8.
You got to get up at 8.
I'm going to
You had a big day.
I'm going to be draining tomorrow morning.
What time was that in the morning? Bright and early?
Yeah, 8. 8's pretty bright and early.
Wow.
Would you say you're starting to get a little delusional?
I think so.
Just temporarily, of course.
Exactly. I hope so, because reality hadn't been worth a doodly.
That'll feel good though. How long has it been since you've been there for that?
I think this is the 4th week. Yeah. So yeah, I'm ready for it. Definitely. I'd like to sleep again.
So Josh Sadler, who's watching, shared an article on my Facebook wall today about a man from New York that got arrested for driving his truck into the ocean down in Florida.
Well, I saw that on the internet.
You did? You know anything more about
I
the
just
story?
I didn't read the story. It just said, what is this guy doing driving? He's on the beach, just drove right out into it. What does he have to say about it?
Well, he shared it on my wall because it reminded him of a lyric to one of my songs. So maybe I'll try to. There's too many verses in that song, so I'll probably cut a few of them by not remembering them. He's in here now, so I figure I should try to make it come together. Illusion is an illusion to this delusion, Kyle, he says.
Wow.
Illusion is
That's
an
what he's
illusion
been-
to this delusion, Kyle.
Kyle's
There you
been
go.
waiting for that all night.
I'll be thinking about that all night.
And that just leads to more confusion. For me.
Confusion ensues.
Optical illusion. No, but how come there's not an optical illusion?
An optical illusion.
Yeah, I believe there is too. Nobody ever says it.
When
but
he just looked over his glasses at my guitar,
yeah, it's an optical illusion.
that was an
yeah.
optical illusion
Yeah.
on so many levels.
Yeah.
Because the glasses put it into a whole nother.
Yeah. So I think
That's the move.
I think we've invented a new term, optical illusion.
It's looking over your glasses to cue somebody.
One of us needs to trademark that, or they're gonna steal it.
Let's put it on our next box of Frosted Flakes.
3D glasses so you can read the optical illusions.
Your problem is you think as long as you done nothing wrong, you done nothing wrong. That ain't the way the world works round here. You're born where you don't belong. You better beg forgiveness if you want to stay strong. You think you can just close your eyes and it all goes away. But he's looking at you and he decides where you go when you go away. You better beg forgiveness. There'll be hell to pay. Who do you think you are? Floating in the stars on a planet spinning round the sun. What did you think would happen when you got into your car and drove it right off into the ocean? Woo-hoo. Blue sky kid, look what you did. You picked the petals off a flower for love, when it was never either or. It was always all the above. You better beg forgiveness. You better look up. Just look at you go in your little rowboat, floating around like life's but a dream. Well, that might be true, but there's too many things that just doesn't mean you better beg forgiveness. Who do you think you are, floating in the stars, on a planet spinning round the sun? Just what did you think would happen when you got into your car? We drove it right off into the ocean. What did you think would happen when you got into your car and drove it right off into the ocean? Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you next time.
And people, I know I've said this before, but seeing him live is totally different than seeing him on the show. I don't know what it's like watching on the show, but you have to see him live. Come out Saturday. The magic is wonderful. It really is. It's totally different seeing you live. You can feel the love. It's good.
Then like this. Because this is not live, this is television.
Right. Completely different.
I mean, sitting here beside him, listening to him play.
To feel the energy.
We'll definitely have
Feel my tremble.
Yeah, you're close enough to see him tremble.
Oh, the tremble. All right, clapping in the chat.
All right.
Thanks for that memory, Josh. I hadn't thought of that song in quite a while. It's a good one. I remember the best version ever done of that was in Florida on our way to Jam Cruise. We were having a pre-party. And Nate was there, and Ethan, and
Was it a